Hi Year 7. Today our lesson is going to be on how you calculate the perimeter of an object. So just to start, the perimeter is just the distance around the outside of a 2D object or shape. So for example, we've got a rectangle in the diagram here, and the perimeter would be just the distance all the way around. Like if you were going to walk all the way around that rectangle, how far would you have to walk? So to calculate the perimeter, all we need to do is basically add up the length of each of the sides. So in this case here, we've got a rectangle. So we know that the top and the bottom there are going to be the same length, and then the two sides will both be 3 centimeters. So the perimeter is just all of those sides added up. Okay, and when we add those all together, we get a total of 15 centimeters. Okay, so very simply, that's how we calculate the perimeter of an object. Okay, so sometimes you might have a trickier looking object. You might not have just a simple rectangle. And in that case, you need to make sure that you know the length of all of the sides before you calculate the perimeter. So let's take a look at what the first shape that we have here. So in this case, sometimes it's easier if you sort of trace with your pen all the sides. We know that one's 4 centimeters. We don't know this side, so I'll just highlight that one. We know that's 2. Okay, we've got a 4 centimeter here. We don't know the length of this side. We don't know the length of this side, and we don't know the length of this side. So there are a couple of sides that we need to work out before we start calculating the perimeter. Okay, now this one here is obviously going to be the same as the length on top of it. So that's also 4 centimeters. Okay, and then the same with this one here. If that top line up there is 2 centimeters, then this must also be 2 centimeters. Now what's a little bit tricky are these two here. And what you can say is, okay, you know this whole length from here to here is 4 centimeters. You know this is 2 centimeters. So those two sides have to be 4 minus 2, they have to be 2 centimeters, and there's 2 sides there, so they've got to be 1 centimeter each. So I'll just put a 1 centimeter, 1 centimeter each. And now we've got all of the sides. Okay, so the perimeter here, now make sure you know where you've started. I'm going to start at this side here, is going to be 4 plus 1 plus 2 plus 4 plus 2 plus 1 plus 4 plus 2. And when you've got a lot of sides like this, you might want to do just a quick check, like I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sides. And when I look at my calculation, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lengths. Okay, so just a quick check to make sure I haven't missed anything. And when I add those all together, I get 4 and 1 is 5, 7, 11, 13, 14, 18, 20 centimeters total. Okay, so let's take a look at our second example here. It looks like there's a lot going on. What we just need to remember is what these dashes, or these lines on each side, tell us about the length of each side. So in this case here, you can see there's one dash, and that's telling us that that's 2 meters long. So that means any other side that's marked with one dash is also 2 meters long. Okay, now if I have a look here where I have 6 meters, that's got 2 dashes on that side. So that means this side here is also 6 meters because it's labeled with those 2 dashes. And then similarly, this last side here is 12 meters. So this one with 3 dashes must also be 12 meters. Okay, remember things are not to scale. We need to go by what's labeled on the diagram. So now I'm going to add these up, and this time, because I've got a lot of measurements the same, I'm going to take a look. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, I've got 5 sides that are 2 meters long. So I'm just going to do, instead of 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2, I'm just going to write that as 5 times 2. And then I've got 2 sides that are 12 meters, and 2 sides that are 6 meters, and then one last side that is 22 meters. And then I'm going to add those up. So I do my multiplication first, 10 plus 24 plus 12 plus 22. And when I add all of those together, I get a final perimeter of 78 meters. And don't forget to put your units on your final answer there. You don't need to include the units when you're doing the calculations. That can get a bit confusing, but just make sure your final answer has got the units written there. Okay, this next shape is really interesting, and it says, is there enough, the question is there enough information to calculate the perimeter of this shape? Okay, so let's have a look here. First of all, I know that this side also has to be 10 centimeters because they're both sort of labeled with those 2 dashes. But now I don't really have any other markings here, and at first glance it sort of looks like maybe I don't have enough information. But if you use a bit of logical thinking, you can see that if I take this line and this line and this side and this side, those 4 would have to add up to 10 centimeters. I don't need to know what each individual one is, but I know that those 4 all together have to be 10 centimeters. Similarly, if I look at all the sides that are sort of horizontal, this one, and this one, and this one, those would all be the same length as this side. So those would all have to add up to 10 centimeters as well. So even though I don't know the length of each individual side, I can use a bit of logical reasoning to work out that the perimeter must be 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10, or 4 times 10 or 40 centimeters. Okay, the last thing you need to remember when you're calculating perimeter or you're calculating anything to do with measurements is that you need to make sure you're working with the same units, okay, the same units before you calculate. So in this case here, we've got a triangle, and to calculate the perimeter, I just need to add up the 3 sides. But these 2 sides are given to me in millimeters, and this one's given to me in centimeters. So I'm going to convert, and it doesn't matter, you could convert them all to centimeters or all to millimeters, as long as you're working in the same units. So this one here is 6 centimeters, which I know I need to multiply by 10 to make that 60 millimeters. Okay, and we did that in the last lesson, so you can go back to your conversion chart if you need to remind yourself here, but there's 10 millimeters in 1 centimeter. Okay, so now I can calculate that the perimeter is 60 plus 30 plus 45, which gives me a final perimeter of 135 millimeters. Okay, so that's my final answer. If the question had said make sure you answer in centimeters, or if you did it in centimeters, you would have got 13.5 centimeters. Okay, so now that you've looked at this video, what I want you to do is just write a little summary of what the key ideas were of the video. So you can answer these questions. What does perimeter mean? So if you're going to describe what the perimeter is, what does that mean? And try not to just copy my definition, but think about how you would explain it. Okay? And then how would you explain to someone how you calculate the perimeter of an object? Is there any other important information that you need to remember? And then I want you to try one sort of final question, which is draw a rectangle that has a perimeter of 32 centimeters. And do you think there's only one way to do this? Okay, and once you finish that, you can start looking at the textbook. We're looking at chapter 11C.